It's a privilege to have so many different people, and then bring the whole society up. So I'm Imran Ari, and with CFNT, Communication Strategy Consultant, and I'll be your host. So just a bit of a special thanks to the Thailand Action Week organizers. So our event would not have been possible without their support. So we truly do thank them for the support as we look out to shaping a more climate safe and inclusive future. So at Climate Thailand, or CFNT in short, our work focuses on the promotion of the integration of climate considerations into financial decisions. So this comes at a critical time as climate change is intensifying all over the world, especially in vulnerable regions in Southeast Asia, in countries as Bangkok, countries in Thailand, and cities such as Bangkok. And we can see that the effects of climate change are particularly evident in urban centers. And it is important to address the effects of climate change as cities are critical nodes of a country's development. And today we have worsening climate scenarios of heat stress, deteriorating air quality, flooding, and land subsidies of rural processes. So this is impacting livelihoods and in turn hampering economic progress. And more funding is needed for activities that improve climate resilience, but this is a task that has typically been borne by the governments. But the efforts alone are not enough. More climate financing is needed, especially from other sectors such as the private sector. But to ensure the effective allocation of resources, we need to accurately track the current climate finance landscape. So this is so that different stakeholders working towards climate action in both the public and private spheres can better identify the gaps of climate finance needs and demands. And this is a gap that CFNT has sought to fill by launching the country's first ever climate finance tracker, which we did earlier this year. And without further ado, I would like to invite Thanida, CFNT's Head of Research, to shed more light on Thailand's climate finance landscape.
Good morning. Welcome to our event, Mobilizing Climate Finance for Climate Resilient Bangkok. So today I'll give you a brief landscape of the Thailand climate finance. This is the first time we have the Thailand climate finance landscape because every the data is quite fragmented, like government takes care of their own, state-owned enterprise disclose their own, corporates also disclose their own. This is the first time we have the overview, the complete, comprehensive picture of the climate finance for Thailand. Okay. So we start with the horrible picture first. So first, Thailand faced and will face significant cost from the climate disaster. So if you can see on the left right-hand side, it's left-hand side for you guys. For the left-hand side, you can see that the heat also is stress on the labor productivity. This is the chart that predict the labor productivity loss in Thailand if the scenario of the climate change going into worst case. So you can see that we lost a lot of productivity, which also means a lot of maybe job or maybe income or productivity loss. This is like the physical thing that the labor in Thailand will face if the climate change got worse. So on your right-hand side, you can see the numbers of climate loss from the climate change. There are a lot of organizations try to predict how much Thailand will lose, and it costs a lot. It can cost even like reach up to 30,000 million USD or 6.6% of the GDP for the annual loss. Or if you focus only on the agriculture, it's also something like 18,000 million Thai baht per year, up until almost 100,000 million baht per year. This is a huge loss that
that pressure us to do something, to do some actionable thing. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. This is another institute. If you compare it to the projection, the GDP loss can reach until to the 33.6, which is a lot more severe than what we faced during COVID-19. I think in COVID-19, GDP loss reached around 6-7%, and all the businesses, all the economic already got worse, and we still try to recover from that disaster. But climate change make it worse than what we can imagine. So looking into Thailand, what have we done so far? So we focus mainly on the climate mitigation. So this is the timeline, but we're trying to incorporate some of the plans that we have now. So we have the net zero emissions target at 2065. It will be changed, but now it's still in progress. We haven't committed the new NDC yet, but we will do soon in the COP30 in November. So you can see that all the plans target into the climate mitigation. We have a draft PDP 2024, but now it's 2025, and it's almost the year end. So we may expect to see the PDP in 2026. So, and also the LTLEDS, we also focus a lot on the mitigation as well. And if there's any synchronization or any kind of, if all the plans going into the same direction, this is our skeptical question as well, because the organization who take care of these plans are different. So we are looking forward to see if they are synchronized or they are getting in the same direction. So this is the NDC that we will commit by November. So we also require the international support apart from our domestic support as well. This is what we should commit earlier on, but we still delay in committing the net zero emissions, the NDC. And then that the mitigation pictures, so you see numbers, you see plans, you see lots of plans going into that mitigation. But for adaptation, we only have this. This is the Thailand National Adaptation Plan. It's quite broad. If you can see, it's quite broad. There's a goal, there's overall goals, but there's still lack of the quantifiable targets or even the actionable timeline. But this is a good starting point that Thai government has some eyes on the adaptation, but still maybe face some challenges in making it into the actionable outcome. So this is, we try to map out the climate vulnerability in urban areas. So this is quite common. So if it's in Thailand, so we face the temperature rising, land subsidence, sea level rising. You can see Bangkok is very near to the river. We have the Chao Phraya River, and the river ends to the sea. So if the sea level rise, so it also affects Bangkok for sure. And there's so we are very low-lying city. So with average elevation only 1.5 meters, but projected sea level is higher than that. So this is like a very crucial challenges that we have to overcome. And there's also rainfall increasing. For the climate risks here, so we see the heat stress, that it's extremely heat in Bangkok. If you come here in April or May, you will be melted in just one footstep outside, and then you will definitely melted. And we have flood every year, and also the erosion. So what's important to make the plan from the plan, the target, to the actionable outcome? So first, we need policy for sure. Political will, therefore, tone from the top will help us a lot into shaping the direction to be if we have a unified stance on climate, there will be a lot more transparency to come, and then for international partners, supporters to see that we have planned and we are going into that direction. Another thing is the public engagement. We have planned, and we have to engage to the people as well, because they are the ones who directly affect from the climate change. The other thing is the technological advancement. This will help the low carbon, commercially viable, so people can transition. And then the most important thing is the funding and financing, which is the backbone of catalyzer to help the climate mitigation and adaptation efforts to have the tangible climate actions. So now we know we have planned, we have seen some losses, we've seen a lot of predictions that Thailand will affect a lot from the climate change. So, but where we are now, are we hitting our targets? Where the funding is coming from? Is it being used effectively? This is the question that hit us, and then we try to answer this kind of question, because before we begin this project, this is our project question, topic question. There's no single picture where you can map all the climate finance flow in Thailand. So we do that to try to develop a clear answer to the question. So, okay, this is what our scope. So what is climate finance? So we divided into climate mitigation, mainly on the cutting GHG emission, and then climate adaptation, which is to reduce the impact of the climate change. Climate finance is any funding from either public or private, either domestically or internationally, used to support these actions. So it can come in any form. We also track the form. It can come in the government budget, which will be called grant, the bank loans, green bonds, and the grants and the concessional finance. So we track all the both from the source of fund and also the instruments that being used to channel the climate finance in Thailand. This is more explanation in case you guys are not familiar with the climate mitigation or adaptation. So for climate mitigation, we use CPI, the Climate Policy Initiatives or methodology, which is they also do the global climate finance landscape. So for the climate mitigation, we're focusing on the prevent climate crisis. It can be installing solar rooftop, the electrify the EV car, also the charging stations, and also the building energy efficiency is in the mitigation. And for adaptation, we use tailwind taxonomy, which is the group of investors try to build on the definition of the adaptation and resilience taxonomy. So this is very broad and very comprehensive. So adaptation also something that we try to manage the emerging risks, urban cooling, drought resilient farming, or even the regenerative agriculture. So mapping the CPI and tailwind back to our plan, we have the NDC plan. Actually, the CPI and tailwind are a little bit broader. They cover something that Thailand may be overlooked. So we choose the both methodology, their methodology, because we can cover more sectors, provide more comprehensive view of the climate finance. Then the NAP can also map with the tailwind as well. Yeah. So when it comes to research, so we have our inclusion and exclusion list. So what we include in the tracker, first we include the new primary finance, the committed finance, that a commitment that maybe corporates or government commits to the public. So for mitigation, we start from 2018, and for adaptation is a little bit lag, so it's 2020. So we choose only what the project that has climate rationale, which means that the project intentionally support the climate, either mitigation or adaptation, like GHG cut or the adaptation thing. We cover public and private flows, and also we use the conservative estimates, which means that if we are not certain with any numbers or the sources, we just omit it. We have it in our track, in our database, but we track that this is still debatable, or this is not, how to say, it's not clear enough, that the rationale is not clear enough. But in the future, if they disclose more information, it may be clear enough to include. So we also note that in our database. So what we exclude, we didn't count every kind of flow coming into green or ESG. So we exclude refinancing, R&D and subsidies, and also the secondary markets. We also exclude the kind of carbon locked-in technology where it might help you reduce the GHG emission for short term, but in the long term, you still have to rely on that kind of technology. So we also exclude that from our tracker, which is, for example, plug-in EVs or clean coal upgrades, because if it's coal, so it still emit the GHG emission anyway. We also exclude the board SDG finance, where we cannot classify what it is, and with no climate target or with no climate rationale. Yeah. Yes. So as we are think tank, CFNT is a think tank. So the approach that we did for the climate finance tracker is the bottom-up approach, meaning that we look into the project level one by one and then combine it into our tracker. So it's over 3,500 projects that we look into. For corporates, maybe we look at the annual reports, sustainability reports. For government, we look at their budget report. For commercial banks, yeah, we also track perhaps the sustainability report or annual report, and also the bond issuance from the Thai BMA database. So we try to have everything. We try to get have as comprehensive as we can. So yeah, so we took about a year to build this tracker. And you can expect a lot of turnover rate coming along, because it's quite labor intensive kind of thing, but we are so proud of it. So this is the first Thailand climate mitigation finance landscape. If you can see, you can see from the source of fund, sector, and subsector. Subsector is the use of fund, and you can also play this landscape in the interactive screen outside. So we have two. The first one is the climate mitigation finance in Thailand, which accounts around 1.7 trillion baht. So looking into source of fund first, as you can see, private player leads this market. So if you combine corporates and commercial banks, it accounts around 65%, which is 2/3. This also meaning that private sector sees the great opportunity. They know that they have to transition themselves to greener or less brown corporate activities. And we also see a very significant improve on the SOE side. This is mainly because lots of SOEs are energy, oil, and gas company. That's why they also have to adapt themselves into the kind of climate change things. But this is like we still have a room to grow. If you can see the multilateral climate fund, or maybe fund from the outside, from international fund like JTP, Just Transition Program that our neighboring country got. There's a huge opportunity that Thailand hasn't been tapped yet. So you can see it also accounts around very few, 0.4%. So this is like also some gaps that Thailand can look into and then close the gap. Looking into the sector, it's quite common that you all know that energy and transport will be the top two projects or sectors that mitigation finance going to. And it's, yeah, because Thailand also has a infrastructure ready for the energy transition. But one maybe interesting things to see is the undetermined, which accounts quite a lot, like 25.8% of all. This is come from where we know that it's green loan from the bank. So for example, from a bank, and they commit, but they do not specify the destination or the sector that they provide. So we also left it undetermined for this stage. And in the future, we try to crack this one as well, just to make it more, maybe it comes to the sectors that haven't been supported that much, like water, agriculture, building, and so on. So this is like top 5 project, very clearly that we have the solar power installation. This is quite large, around 17%. And we also have the energy and transport, so it goes to EV battery manufacturing, high-speed railway, and also the BTS projects. This is very common, I mean, in the world as well, because it requires a lot of funding to do the energy transition, as well as there's also a lot of opportunities in these sectors. So if we try to make it a more urban touch, so we look into the government side, because lots of the urban developments come from government. So we can see that from government, it's quite a low, less than 5% going to local government, and most of them are going to building and waste management. If you can see, the top 3 projects here are energy generation, also from waste to energy projects, and also the building efficiency for the energy efficiency, and also waste management. Yeah, this is the overview of the climate mitigation finance in Thailand. So moving into climate adaptation. Climate adaptation mainly funded by the government, because, okay, you all perhaps understand this, because all the infrastructures come from the government. I think it's around 96% come from the government, and then 25% going into the water infrastructure. This is because of our National Development Plan, which focusing on the urban development, industrialization in the past 3-4 decades. But we haven't been revised it in detail. So we still use that plan, but we haven't been revised to reflect current situation. That's why we still have a lot of infrastructure, water infrastructure in climate adaptation. To see the overall number, it accounts around almost 10% of the climate mitigation, which means that despite the huge cost that we see in the early slides, the government still lag, or maybe their speed is still lagging behind the cost that may occur in the future. So the first, the top 3 projects going into the sustainable water infrastructure, you can see the wall, in irrigated water management to prevent drought and flood in country, and also the urban resilience. So they also focus on the disaster in urban area, because we situated nearby the river and the sea, and also the sustainable agriculture, but it's quite small. If you see from the percent, the sustainable infrastructure accounts for 72.2, where urban resilience only get like 10% of the overall climate adaptation finance in Thailand. So this is zooming into again to the local government, because not only if we count Bangkok, it will be in the local government. But unfortunately, we cannot find this publicly disclosed data from the BMA. So this is like maybe not, it represents the local government from the whole country, but this is the best we try, the best effort we can. So we see that it goes into ecosystems, marine ecosystems, the coastal prevention, and also into the healthcare. Yeah, you can see it's to the mangrove plantation and the healthcare and the education, knowledge and information. Try to build capacity building for the adaptation and resilience. So this is zooming to Bangkok. This is what the data we got when we first launched this tracker. We have BMA sit with us in a panel, and they have this number. So this is, Bangkok had made some progress into climate financing. So they released around 92,000 million baht, and then 22% of it goes to climate change. So they divided into mitigation, adaptation, and prevention. For mitigation, mainly it goes to the waste management, which is aligned with our tracker. But these numbers are not in our tracker yet. This is what we will revise because they do not disclose publicly, so we don't know about this. But yeah, in the later stage, we try to convene more stakeholder engagement, try to have a focus group to get more and more detail on the climate finance going on. So they also focus on, as you can see, mitigation also gain a lot of, over half portion of it, and they also focus on the adaptation as well, which is definitely the urban flood prevention and also the green space in Bangkok. So this is one of our last slides. So we see that adaptation finance is a missing piece. But this is the overall Thailand's needs for the climate finance. As you can see, for mitigation, we need 12 trillion, but now we have only 1.7. There are a lot more room to grow. There are a lot of room that international financing can support us. And also for adaptation, we cannot find the needs, so we use the expected annual loss, which reach 1 trillion, but we only have 10% of it in 4 years. So this is like, there's a lot of work to do, there's a lot of gap to fill, but there's also opportunity as well to help the country transition toward 1.5, maybe not realistic anymore, to the climate goal. Yeah. So this is the limitation we have. This is definitely a comprehensive, we try to make it as much as we can. So we have also the data classification. There's no widely accepted standard, which is very challenging to flag the use of fund. And also there's also consistent level of disclosure. As you can see, banks, they just disclose their numbers, but not objectives or sectors. Government, if you look into the federal government, there are a lot of details. There's objective, KPI, but if you look into the local government, there's just only the project name and the amount. So which means that we may omit some important numbers because of some insufficient information, which is very crucial. If we would like to have more comprehensive numbers, we should have a consistent level of disclosure, which also meaning that we should have the data classification. And then the last point, maybe lack of MRV is the common challenges in the world. We rely on reported data. So if the company, corporates, government has do the MRV, so it will be accurate, but we just collect their data. So we didn't do the independent verification. So this is like what we perceive. We have that assumption in our mind, but we still try to make it as comprehensive as possible. So yeah, you can explore our data by scanning this QR code, or if you use your phone, you have to tilt it into the horizontal, and then you can click each line to tell how much it is. And also in the next phrase, in this kind of tracker, the database, we plan to update annually. So this is the revision round is coming, it's approaching. So in the next year we plan to release the raw data. We try to make it use as much user-friendly as possible. So you can use that data for your perhaps planning, strategy, developing, and so on. And we also, by revision, we also have the plan to do the focus group or interview the source of fund so that we get more granular data and perhaps more accurate and the most update that they can disclose. Yeah, so I think that's all for for the overview of the Thailand climate finance landscape today. And yeah, we welcome all the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Thanida, for the presentation. So definitely a lot to unpack and more action to be done. So currently we will open the floor to any questions that you may have for Thanida based on the presentation. Does anyone have any questions for Thanida?
Yes. Yeah. Make it simple.
Hi, my name is Thomas. I was wondering whether you are also looking at including some metrics on the dynamics of the financial evolution, because I can see that you're looking back to come to a picture, but what's important is to look forward. What are the dynamics of finance climate? How are they evolving? How are you looking at that?
Actually, I think climate finance in Thailand is gaining momentum. But if you compare speed and amount to our need, it's still moderate. We also have some stakeholder engagement. We convene with some of the key players here, like regulators, FIs, financial institutions, just to see how they have some views on the data. But the tracker means to just capture what we have now, our status. But we have seen that if you compare, actually there's an older version of this, and then we revised up until May 2025, and it also increased. So we're also looking at, if we're looking into the future, I think it's gaining momentum, it will increase, but in which speed, that is also our challenges to decide. So.
Thank you, Thanida. Yes?
Hello, I'm Tanya from Global Compact. Thomas already asked my question as well. But to support you in the future, I'm thinking to have a clear picture of the scenario. Like in Thailand, most of the time we think about adaptation, but it's not yet investing. So I'm thinking about how do you plan for next year, like when you trace the data. Is that the tracker help to collect the data of the commitment pledge, or you like to track based on the annual investment year by year?
Our tracker track the pledge, the committed numbers. But for adaptation, we have a collaboration with PEER, the Boy Institute, Economic Research, from the Bank of Thailand. So we have some kind of partner who are very specialized on the climate adaptation. So we pair with them, and then we tracked all the committed amount of And if we have time, we try to map into provinces, because adaptation mostly attached into area. Like if you have, it's mostly attached to some area. So it might be interesting if the finance going to the accurate area, or is it too much or too low in that area? So we can also make some policy brief on that as well.
Thank you, because the reason we mentioned about the future on that scenario, because adaptation is always change. No matter they pledge this year, but I have to tell you the truth that I used to track 5 years ago for the SDGs, but year by year they had changed the projects. But it's not bad because they adapt. And that's the reason that whatever they already pledge, the number always changing as a good dynamic. It's a very positive change anyway. Thank you.
Yeah. But we try to map with the area if we can, because we have the local government numbers, and so we can see if it's too much on this province, why they have even though have this problem.
Sorry, also from CFNT. Just want to add to what Nan was saying that since right now most of the data for adaptation is from local government and federal government budget, we think that those projects will be there. This is already committed by the government. So on that front, what's going to be interesting next year is, let's say, we try to compare those numbers with the Thailand's National Adaptation Plan, because we're also expecting the National Adaptation Plan to be more detailed. We're not sure yet, right? But
Yeah.
but also on the non-government, I think that's more challenging, and so that's why we need to supplement it with surveys and maybe to do some structured interviews with, for example, philanthropies that we know for a fact have some adaptation-related projects. So we welcome also. I just want to say we welcome all assistance and inputs from any of you in the room who works for the civil society or philanthropies that are related to adaptation in Thailand, just to make sure that we have more robust information next year. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. I'm Yanis. I'm a consultant civil engineer. You almost actually answered my question. I was going to ask whether you have a spatial dimension of adaptation finance, knowing where in the country it's addressed towards. I guess as a follow-up, do you see any blockers in making the most of this spatial information? So do you know where the benefit is most and the avoided losses hence addressed more effectively?
Yeah, that's what would be for the next phase. But now, so the data, we have some spatial information because we track by project, especially at the local government, so we know exactly the problems. So we actually track by problems. But that's only, as I mentioned, that's only the committed government budget in those provinces. So I think your question actually need to be answered with more comparisons. So that's why I think, okay, we start with the adaptation plan, because that should go down to detail. Yes.
Hi, good morning. My name is Putra. I'm from SCG Group, so from SCG Chemical. So one comment and one question. I think the undetermined, it's basically from us. I think largely, yeah, from because when we take out loans, we don't identify what we're going to use to begin with. But a lot of it goes into projects for efficiencies improvement, which in the end we don't disclose how much we use. So it could largely be in there, because when you look at it, the industry only invests 16 billion baht. That's nowhere near the real numbers. But I think, but so that's related to the next question I was going to ask was, we just had the first draft on taxonomy. Will it help identifying, the right data, or would it actually complicate things in terms of, releasing the money out from the system?
Yeah, so thank you, Ka. I think that's a very big challenge right now, because basically there's no alignment, right, between, let's say, Thailand's NDC plan, the bank's classification of green loans, and also how corporates themselves classify. So there's no alignment whatsoever. But we do think that taxonomy could be a good starting point. That's why actually my affiliated organization, CFNT Thailand, has been asking the Bank of Thailand for the past 3 years to make taxonomy a requirement for disclosure for banks. So they say that they want to, so the Bank of Thailand tell us they want to make taxonomy a reporting requirement. So reporting means from the banks to the Bank of Thailand, but no public disclosures. So we say, please, if you're going to do that, then make it all the way to public disclosures. And then to go further, you can add this tagging. So if we can tag these like on the project basis or asset level to make it easier for us to compile data. So I think that's what they are thinking about, but we're not sure how, because it's also a big challenge for the banks also. Because I mean, the banks have similar issue that you mentioned, right? So when the banks lend, sometimes the banks say working capital, right? So working capital could be like for whatever. They don't usually have to go down to see how that working cap is used for which asset, whether it's green or not, right? So there's a lot of, I think, detailed challenges that we need to tackle. But I think that it needs a concerted effort, maybe between the taxonomy working group and the government and also the DCCE, because the DCCE is in charge of the NDC and adaptation plans. We believe it can be done. It just needs like a really concerted work, and everybody should promote this data transparency and tagging. Thank you.
Hi, good morning. Paulina Pori, Jason Energy. It was a very helpful presentation, and I was just really curious about the flows of finance for climate mitigation sort of being dominated by the public sector. Climate adaptation-wise, probably no surprise, private sector is largely absent. I was just wondering, as I represent private sector here, do you have any thoughts in terms of how we could get private sector more involved in terms of the potential business case for them as well? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that adaptation is very difficult. I think that first of all, there's no. I mean, if you ask the banks, for example, so we talked to some banks, they're like, well, there's no business case for adaptation as far as they can see. You know what I mean? Because so for mitigation, there are some very real like cost savings. So that's why I think that is no surprise. Most of the projects that banks finance basically are like renewable energy efficiency, right? So those, you can calculate very clear returns for the banks, right? But adaptations, like there's no number like that. So I think that's kind of a challenge already to begin with. But I think for us, that's why there's a need for blended finance. That's why we need to step up with the public finance piece of the puzzle. But I think overall, like adaptation needs to start with why, right? So I think why do we need to think about adaptation? I think we need to start with climate impacts, right? So climate impacts for, let's say, SMEs, for example, how can they understand what the impact to them? Then you go back further. That means they need a lot more information on climate risk, right? So they need things like, I think like water stress maps. Like I've seen things that large companies have been doing to justify their investment in adaptation. If you look at what big companies are doing, they say they start with this information, right? They have people who run the models and say, okay, we have these water stress maps, heat stress maps. They find out which area their factories are in that could be flooded in the future. But SMEs and people don't have access to that kind of information at all. So I think that this is one very big area where government and international organizations can really step in and assist. Yeah, so that's a potential there to create a very clear incentive for adaptation.
Thank you, Onsaran from the World Bank, and thank you for this presentation. And I think it's a wonderful work, and it's very important for Thailand to have this overall picture of our climate investment, both from mitigation and adaptation side. From the tracking perspective, I just wonder that how do you treat the case of projects where they actually deliver dual benefits, right? There are a lot of investment that are not just mitigation or adaptation. If you invest in nature-based solution, mangrove rehabilitation, that is both mitigation and adaptation. How do you treat that in the way you track it? So not to undercount or overcount, really.
So I think because it's a difficult issue, and I think that because we don't have enough data to determine, so the short answer is we don't include dual benefits at the moment. So basically, we classify project either mitigation or adaptation, mostly based on what the project developer themselves say. But I think that could be very important, as you say. But I think that we need to understand a lot more about the nature of the projects to determine that. And we just, I guess, don't have enough know-how. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. I think we only have time for maybe 2 more questions. Yeah.
So I support your findings because right now, in the global south, we face the problem on lack of fund for the adaptation. So they did in line with the global trend. And next year, the trend will be changing. You may be surprised. More fund will be going to nature-based adaptation, community-led adaptation. So I think you can focus more on this. I'm also happy that I hear you will be doing more analysis on flowing of fund, adaptation fund to province and locals. And I also recommend to add more to community level so that we will have the full picture and the trend will be changing. That's because of the global trends, and the global fund will be supporting more to the community level. So if you can do that, you can give the whole pictures of mitigation and adaptation, and those involved in the policy, they will see, oh, what we need to do more, what we should get involved, right? Because there is some financial gap for the climate change. Yeah.
I think that this period is the golden period for us to do many things. To have the strong database and direction for finance, I think we should do something in parallel to get rid of barriers. And what I mean the golden period is DCCE just launched new NDC 3.0. Net zero go to 2050, okay, and aggressive 40% plan on 2030. I think that this is very good point. And we just have the new committee on national energy plan, the new of the new. Okay, I think that's one. Yes, newer than the previous one. And this is the golden period that we can feed this kind of information to the committee. At least we have someone that we can have the channel to feed this information. So I think that if we have chance to make it, if our national energy plan getting along with what we get, that will be the good opportunity. We have new prime minister which on the top of Kopachor, I cannot remember the name in English, and he's also and he's also the interior department that can control PEA and MEA also. So I think several points that we can drive many things with this golden period.
Thank you everyone for the variety of questions. So definitely a lot to ponder. So now we'll be taking a bit of a short break. There are refreshments provided in the common room just outside. For those of you who weren't able to download the presentations from the slides from the presentation earlier, you can do so at that registration desk outside. We ask that everyone comes back at 10:35 a.m. So we will start our panel discussion afterwards. Thank you.